A very warm welcome to you all. Welcome to Designing Cities for All,
the 2-year activity program of Pakhuis de Zwijger,
in which we take a deep dive into designing products,
places and systems for all.
At every level, we can see certain communities being marginalized, being taken advantage of, and it's all part of the design.
When you're neurodiverse, you're in a world that isn't designed for you.
We're not the only species on the planet. The city needs to be also a city for the other species.
And we need to do something because the old structures in which we worked don't work.
Things won't change just if we just let things happen.
Instead of saying, what can we do to mitigate the impacts? We need to start asking ourselves, what is causing that?
Design is political, that we need to design processes, that we are all different, but there are things that unite us.
These are the things that need to be on the table, that need to be recovered in order to redesign the society.
Everything around us was once designed and can therefore be redesigned.
How do we teach design in a way where students can be really critical of the systems of power that have informed and dominated design?
Inclusion happens by design or not at all.
I think it's always some kind of a co-creation process, and you have to make very little steps and then figure out together what works and what doesn't.
It takes as much time to do something good as it takes time to do something bad.
All design tells a story.
But there's also a bit of a need to not just write ourselves into the past, but also kind of write ourselves into the future.
I invite you so much to join my path of liberation, and I'm hopefully being welcomed by your path of liberation.
We have to heal collectively. We have to help each other understand some of these constructs that actually divide us.
Not fitting in was a blessing, or I would have turned out just like you.
Hello and welcome to you all from Pakhuis de Zwijger. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight, despite the weather was not very nice. And also a warm welcome to all the people watching us online. So we are gathering tonight to kick off the first episode of a fellowship with Ekim Tan on urban city games in the age of urban AI. And before that, I would like to explain a little bit about the video that you just watched, which was the wrap-up of the first 2 years of Designing Cities for All, a 2-year-long and research activity program. We finished in 2022, and we rebooted again in 2023 with the sub-theme of regeneration. We did this with 6 fellows, and Ekim, sitting here next to me, is the last fellow that we are doing this program series together. So tonight marks the beginning of the very final fellowship of DCFA. If you've been watching or being here before, yeah, it's very emotional for all of us because it's finishing. I would like also to explain a bit more about the fellowship, but of course I'll leave the floor to Ekim. We decided to invite her as, of course, the founder of Play the City and director of Game for Cities, in which they focus on using collaborative decision-making through gamification of urban planning processes. And with emerging urban AI, we wanted to merge them, and then, yeah, we took a deep dive into understanding what are we doing. And of course, we have Mert Akay and Carissa Champling. Was pronunciation correct? Sitting here. Later, I will introduce them. But yeah, I just wanted to give a bit of introduction, and we can continue later. But I also wanted to let you know that if there is something that you wanted to share with us, we'll have a Menti code here. I'll say it out loud, 8680095. One more time, 8680095. And then throughout the conversation, we would really like to include you all, also people watching us online, So yeah, please be part of this conversation and do not leave us alone here. And one more thing I also wanted to share, if you also have, we will have a 10-minute Q&A at the very end of the session, so please keep your questions. We'll open the floor for that. And yeah, I guess that's it. Oh, I forgot to introduce my name. Oh, Mikala as well. Yeah, please, can we have Mikala on the screen? She's joining us through Zoom, all the way from Berlin. And she's artist and curator and yeah, focusing more on new media performance. Ah, there she is. I can see her. Probably you.
Hi.
Hello, Mikala. Yeah.
Happy to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Okay, I guess I talked enough. I would like to first leave the floor to Ekim, so she can introduce herself and her work, and then why we're sitting tonight together here. Hello and welcome.
Thanks a lot for the nice introduction, Faize, and I have to tell that I'm really grateful for the Designing for All program, Designing Cities for All program, to give us like all our studio the space, and a bit also like obligation to actually really understand. I mean, when you guys came us for the fellowship, we could have chosen the easy way, saying, okay, let's do the whole fellowship about city gaming, but I think we chose something for more challenging, also something that we were also ourselves curious. So I see this fellowship also as maybe a collaborative research also with the people who are joining us. So we are also asking a lot of questions, probably instead of answering, we will be asking a lot of questions, I think, tonight. Yeah, so we decided to ask what will be the role of city games in the age of urban AI. So when we say urban AI, actually, I think you have heard a lot of versions of AI: contestable AI, open AI. It goes on. It is the term that we borrowed from the France-based think tank. And according to their definition, urban AI means refers to artificial intelligence technologies that improve urban life in terms of sustainability, urban infrastructure, and social equity. So within that context, we think that urban AI is not something like a blank slate. It's actually let's say a new phase or the follow-up phase of what we have started already, I think, since the late 90s, smart cities movement. And yeah, and I think under the, let's say, smart cities movement, serious gaming, and under that, city gaming, basically have been so far getting some sort of a supportive role, right, within the urban planning processes. So it is given the role of training and learning and basically informing urban planning processes. And I think maybe our studio played the city with other few initiatives, such as Block by Block from London, Cityscope from MIT Sensible Lab, were actually claiming a little bit more than just training and learning as a role for city games, saying that actually they can be generative. We can use them to support decision-making processes. We can use them to actually make collaborative plans, etc. So I think in that sense, we are in between this, let's say, moving from smart cities movement to urban AI. The question is, if, as everybody is assuming, urban AI will become much more fundamental for urban design processes of architects and urban planners, what does that mean actually for city games? Will city games move from, let's say, supportive roles to more, let's say, central role in urban planning? So that's why, actually, this was for us the beginning question. So what we did, we have heard from you that we have 3 debates. And the first debate, let's say, we said, let's try and see and map what are the differences from smart cities to urban AI. That we will do today together with Carissa, Mert, and Mikala from Berlin, right? From Berlin. And then we said that maybe the other big question, when you look at the whole literature, all scholars end up saying that urban AI is, yeah, it will become what it is in relation to urban governance. So how the governance will give it a role or not, or how it will position, will become very crucial for urban AI. So I think the next debate, next question will be about what is the position of, let's say, high-tech companies in relation to local governments. And I think in more traditional urban planning, we have been discussing the position of citizen participation in relation to like existing decision-making processes. If the whole thing will be paralyzed, given the role of like the big growing imbalance between the high-tech companies versus local governments, what will then be the role of citizens, etc., etc. So that will be the second debate, and then I think there maybe I should stop and give a little of example.
I want to say that I wanted a few words on fellowship. You elaborated on the whole thing, but please continue now.
Okay.
That you're on the way. What's going to be the third episode about?
The third episode, yeah, I think maybe before we want like. I'm doing my introduction here, okay? Hello, man. So I think, we like looking at all these examples of like, hey, the urban governance in relation to urban AI. I think the Dutch-speaking ones among you would know the toeslagen scandal or like childcare benefits scandal. So I think it's not related directly to our profession, but I think in the whole debate and in like what it brought to Dutch politics was basically, and we are talking about an algorithm who runs more frequent checks on low-income migrant families, which causes a whole political crisis, and then the cabinet fell. But according to Marietje Schaake from the Follow the Money podcast, in that whole process, nobody really asked who delivered the algorithm, who designed it, and can we change it? And apparently the algorithm is still there. So I think in that discussion, I mean, of course, maybe it's not our profession, but it could have been our profession if we were saying AI running processes for, let's say, social housing projects and the position of tenants in that whole process. So I think that's interesting in that sense. And the last debate will be more urban AI and design, and that I can cut short. The questions there will be how does urban AI influence, let's say, the design brief, and then what does it mean for design processes? Is it, as many architects think, make things faster and automation, or is it more than that? Is it going towards autonomy? So that's the three episodes.
Thank you so much. It was like a full explanation of the whole fellowship. It was just a promotional strategy, so you stay with us also for the second and third one. But I didn't want to interrupt you, but I would like to take a step back and maybe simply for people who does not know what your initiative of playing the city and game for cities, what does that mean? Can you give a very simple example of how does that work? Apart from
I think maybe then Kaan can help me with that by pushing the button.
Yeah.
There was a video before this. I don't know if you received the video.
I guess probably we didn't receive a video, but
okay. Can you show the main page of playthecity.eu?
I guess if
can you show a website?
Yeah, I guess we can show the website as you're talking through, because they need to find it.
I think that the easiest way of explaining what we are doing is just the video on our homepage. Basically, city games, I think, can be defined as let's say situation room like places where a collectively decided focus question can be, let's say, from the reality can be taken to a situation room, modeled, and then in that setting, multiple players come together, multi-actor situation where from different perspectives, decision can be taken together. So this is the practice, and I think you see different settings, different game processes that. And as you see, it is through different scales, from regional planning to, let's say, affordable housing on a city scale to, let's say, a building scale.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be what we're going to discuss. First, we're going to lay the foundation for the whole conversation that's coming in the next few months. And tonight, as Ekim explained, we're going to focus on digitalization and an understanding and breaking down all of these terms, that what is urban AI and how city games and game for cities can be used in that sense. I would like to start inviting our other guests, and thank you again for being with us tonight. Carissa, you are geo-transdisciplinary professor at University of Twente. Can you start by explaining what a geo-transdisciplinary teacher does, and then also a bit about your background and research and yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, transdisciplinarity, first of all, is about breaking down silos. We know that the scale of the challenges that we're facing in society today, from climate change to social justice issues and inequalities in cities, they're just so intertwined, and they always have been. But we're starting to realize as academics, maybe a little bit too late, that our siloed way of thinking is not working well in helping us as scientists contribute to solving these problems. So transdisciplinarity is about bringing different disciplines together, working together, learning each other's languages, but also breaking down that fourth wall between academics and society. So that is what makes transdisciplinarity different from interdisciplinarity. Mm-hmm. And then I focus particularly on the geosciences, so the spatial sciences, the way we understand our cities, our world, and different phenomena here on Earth. A lot of the technologies we use, since we're having a technology panel, are satellite imagery, drones, these kinds of technologies that help us map the world. I have my background since my PhD at the University of Twente in planning support systems. Now I do a lot of making games, serious games. Maybe we go into it a little bit more along the way. But this year is actually a very special year. It's the 50th anniversary since Douglas Lee wrote his very famous, at least in our world of planning support systems, wrote his famous article called Requiem for Large-Scale Models. So maybe if you could pull up that slide. Yes. So as the scholar on the panel today, I'm going to tell you a little bit. I'm not an AI expert, but this is the direction that our planning support technologies are taking. So I'm going to give you a bit of the history of planning support technologies, the technologies that help plan our cities and our societies. And I want to talk specifically about computational models. So these are the models that really, computational models are structured numerical models of the real world in language in machine readable language, right? To make these models, you have to create simplified representations of the real world. And the real world is highly complex, intertwined, hyper messy, you could say. And not only that, but the world is constantly changing in unpredictable ways. So I think you can see a bit the tension that I'm moving towards with this. So in 1973, Douglas Lee Jr. Published his Requiem for Large-Scale Models. And I won't go through every single, all 7 of these pitfalls of these models. But let's just say these computers had been around for a couple of decades in the world of planning. And it was time to reflect on the impact that they were having. And not all of it was great. First of all, he said they suffer from hyper-comprehensiveness. The problem with this is that when you try to map and model and simulate everything, suddenly the work of the planner becomes more and more the work of the modeler, him or herself. The hungriness. These models are extremely data hungry. With AI, we know that we're talking at next level data hungry. So this brings all kinds of questions around ethical practices and risks of becoming a surveillance state. The grossness of the models. There's really, when you aggregate to such a level to try to make sense of so much information, it becomes a little too detailed or it's not enough detail and nuance for a policymaker. Maybe not to go too deep on this, the wrong-headedness is a really important one, right? That these black box technologies, they really require a high level of literacy to open them up and to understand them and to engage with them. So again, all sorts of justice questions when we talk about the use of these technologies in planning. So 20 years later, in 1994, Lee revisited his work. He thought, well, how will we overcome any of these challenges? And the simple answer was no. They're still there. He essentially said his conclusions were that for every reason for building a model, there's probably a better way of achieving that objective. For example, maybe asking more socially useful questions. And he also said that, okay, by the way, we have no data on the future, so all of our models are projections of the past, which are in itself incorrect in many ways. Okay, so that's enough with Lee. 20 years after that, my mentors coming from University of Amsterdam and University of Utrecht, they revisited his work and they came to the same conclusions in 2014. We still have not overcome these fundamental challenges. And they gave recommendations for what we needed to do. They said we needed to embrace the ignorance, really recognize that our models can't solve everything. Maybe they can support, but they can't really take over these human processes of planning cities. Maintain continuous dialogue, become more transparent about assumptions, and embrace soft values, which means don't just look at the quantitative, right? The qualitative is so important in society. How can we leave that behind? But while I start to sound like an extreme social scientist who's going to be anti-AI, that is not the case. Their fifth recommendation was embrace new technology. So here we are 50 years later in 2024. And I think that we can say a lot of these pitfalls are really worth reflecting on, even today, especially with the ascent of artificial intelligence impacting our cities. But as Ekim already gave a very nice example of the toeslagsaffaire, I won't go there, but I will say that it's not just the algorithms that we need to be concerned with. If we want to open up these technologies and make them a part of democratic processes, then we also need to think about how we interface with society, how society interfaces with our technologies, what goes into the models, not just the models themselves. I think I will leave it at that, but I would like to just make the final statement that we need to remember that when it comes to really representing the rapid changes in society and also our natural environments, that we need to keep in mind that human decision-making is all about the exception. It is all about nuance, context, and conditionality.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a nice story that you started from, like the research that the Lee started to have like back then, and then how fast everything is changing. We will go back to your example and the story that you told us. I would like to give the floor to Mert. Thank you so much for being here. You're doing your research at University of TU Delft, but your field is more focused on industrial design engineering, but I know that you have also done research on data-driven urbanism. Do you want to tell us more about your work and your research?
Yes, of course. Yes, after Carissa's like very good introduction, I will go with a little bit basics. Like yes, I am working on data-driven urbanism, but what is this data in my work? I would like to explain a bit this one to create a bit context. Yeah. When we talk about the data, of course, the first thing that I'm working on is big data. And yeah, I have provided some definitions for you for big data. Of course, in line with the theme of today, I took help from ChatGPT. And what ChatGPT created a definition definition is quite complex, but what it says generally, a lot of data, a lot of like from different sensors to analyze it and to find some patterns and trends and so on. But if we go to my favorite definition, from maybe I can call him as like a smart city guru, Michael Batty. He has a lot of words in our fields like urban analytics and data science. I really like his definition, like any data that cannot be fit into in any Excel spreadsheet. I think this is quite like
wisdom.
Yeah, of course, like that definition. It is not about the Excel. Of course, it has a lot of things saying about the definitions and also the features of the big data. And what we see is like a potential features of the big data is like we have a lot of sensors that we took a lot of data from the different perspectives and the different parts of the city, which brings us a huge volume of data that we took in a very speed way to gather a lot of information from different parts of the cities to use in different perspectives and in different fields. And since it has provide a lot of variety in its sense, it also flexible to create some relational patterns, to find some associations between and so on. And also the resolution of it's quite fine-grained, and we have very good resolution to conclude in somehow in the level of city to provide some insight for the further stages. And this is the one fold of the data in my research, and the other is called not the big data but the thick data. And I recently started to work on this area to better understand the data, not only from the, let's say, the sensors and so on, but only from the humanistic perspective. And of course, ChatGPT fails again to provide such a good definition. At least for me, it's quite shallow. But what it says, like qualitative data provides deep insight about the people and so on. But when we talk about thick data, I think it is more than that. And if we go through like a more structured understanding of it, what we will see is the thick data uncovers the people's emotions, stories, even their way of understanding the life. And what we collect in here, people's values, knowledge, experience, opinions in some phenomena, especially in my study, it is climate-related challenges. And the way we are gathering this data, not only just high-tech sensors, but the surveys and also the observations, interviews, videos, like a lot of different, let's say, ethnographic data collection methodologies to come up insight into human behaviors, motivations in the certain context. What am I doing is trying to combine this big data understanding with the thick data understanding to increase the level that we understand the cities. I created this image to discuss today because the big data can provide information up to some level, but if we add thick data to it, I think it will uncover some black boxes to provide better formulation for the interscale relations of the citywide problems. I think I will also conclude in here. Yeah, we will discuss more, I think.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I guess thank you for the introduction. We will come back to it, but I would like not to lose any time, and would like to give the floor also to Mikala. Hello again. We are able to hear you and see you. Hi. Mikala, you introduce yourself as new media artist and curator, and I know that you've been working on a lot of cool projects that we can also see on one of the screens, one of the videos that you've been working on. So I'll just leave the floor to you. You start with explaining about your work and your projects, and yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. What an interesting context to be diving into now together with you. I'm sitting here in my kitchen in Berlin, so I wish I could be with you. I will try to teleport to be with you. So what you are looking at now, what you can see here in yeah, and the screen next to me is a project called Citizen AI. It's a collaboration with Artis Mobilis, and it was done in the context of the project called City Climate Meets Creative Coding at City Lab in Hamburg from Hafen University. And quickly, in my mind, this project got redubbed, and it turned into creative coding meets climate care. What we did is that we created a game based on climate research and testing participatory governing processes. So we were interested in seeing, like, how do we get citizens to actively participate in the development of climate care policies. And so for this purpose, we created an exploratory modeling system, which is also available as an online platform. So all of you would like to test it, you can go to climateactionmodel.de. So it's open and free. And on this platform, we present different actions that we can take towards climate care. Some are suggested by OpenAI. Some are suggested by JERIC's climate researchers that we collaborated with on this project. So we have very concrete urban design actions such as a car-free city, green roofs, local urban food production. And then we also have actions that go more towards systemic change, such as collectivization of means of production, collaborative governance, and interspecies coexistence. And the participants in our game are divided into two groups, and they have limited resources. That means that they need to choose among the climate care actions available. And then their set of choices are evaluated and compared with one another. And they are evaluated both in terms of the concrete measurements, such as the reduction of CO2 emissions, but they are also evaluated in terms of soft values that are hard to measure, as you said, also with thick data maybe, such as happiness, and less calculable values such as political stabilities. So these choices made by the two groups, they are then discussed by our newborn AI entity, who is called the Eco Oracle. I developed her together with Daniel Franke, who is also an AI researcher. The AI Oracle, the Eco Oracle, that you can see one of her personas here in the background. She is developed based on the question, so if an AI could dream of a sustainable planetary society, what would her dreams tell us? Which images might emerge, which new politics, which interventions? If an AI could fuse the minds, emotions, and concerns of Earth life into an interspecies consciousness, what new modes of citizenship and Earth care could emerge? So the Eco Oracle is heavily biased. She she both evaluates the choices of our participants, but she also invites them to ask her direct questions. And her ethical system, the ethical system that she's based on, belongs to a merger of Antonio Gramsci, Donna Haraway, Vandana Shiva, Audre Lorde, Extinction Rebellion, and the UN Climate Research Report, the IPCC. So she's really merging eco and queer feminist, interspecies, neo-Marxist and climate justice discourses into one persona. And in our most positive reading, she could embody the potential of a global awakening that engages directly with the questions and concerns of citizens living now. And in this gaming situations, you suggest which group of our contestants, which made the cleverer choices, what will their long-term outcome be of these sets of actions that they have chosen. And the Eco Oracle also brings me towards something that I think is incredibly important right now in the time and space that we are in. And it is we need to base our development of AI systems on an ethics of care. Like, there is nothing inherently good or bad about AI. It just increases the potency of existing biases extremely. So we need to make sure that we pick the right ones. So I believe, like, one thing that I would find incredibly important right now is that we, all of us today, artists, researchers, scientists, come together to try to address the question, how can AI bring about a care revolution? And here I talk about care in an extended sense, so meaning both interhuman relationships, but also meaning earth care. The two are really intertwined. We have AI emerging now, an incredibly powerful tool capable of automating many redundant jobs, bullshit jobs, streamlining structural processes, optimizing earth care. This technology can potentially free up countless working hours that could allow us to spend more time caring for each other and enabling more sustainable uses of energy, enabling more sustainable urban systems. But,
great.
And this is the big but.
Sorry that I'm interrupting you. It's I would love to hear the rest, but I guess let's save a little bit of what you're discussing for a bit later, because we're a bit behind the time. And then it would be nice to also open the floor for the Mentimeter questions, and then we can also get people here in the studio and also people watching us online engaged with the conversation. So let's start with, if you can insert the code 8680095 into menti.com. The first question will pop up for you. I can also already start giving a bit of, do you think urban AI can be fully autonomous? We still do not have that. Yeah, perfect. Oh, I already see answers popping up. Also, for the people who are watching us online, if you missed the code, just go to menti.com and insert the code 8680095. 8680095. As we're, I see a lot of no answers. Yeah, as you're answering, maybe we can talk a little bit about autonomous. What do we mean by autonomous in this question?
Yeah, I think that for tonight, like, maybe I can also shortly give my introduction speech for today's discussions. And I think we started basically with the idea that urban AI is not a blank slate. We are coming from somewhere, and I think that if we look at the smart cities movement and what's now coming up, there were some differences, or there were some, let's say, diversion from where we have been heading with the smart cities to what the urban AI will be bringing us. And I think one of them is just the question that we have seen. So I think what Mikaela was mentioning, so it will take a lot of the extra hours. The automation is probably welcomed by many designers and many render works or visualizations, etc. And the architects are seeing, so far as I could, hear them, this is a technology that will, free us the space to become more creative, and it will support us as a support tool. And I think if you read more into the literature, you see also examples, or look at the examples of AI, you see that not only automation, but the autonomy. So it's a new technology that actually suggests that can replace human cognition.
That's the
Therefore,
cost.
Yeah,
They have to pay.
Therefore, the designers is the question. I think that the question or the discussion that I would like to put on the floor is that are we as designers too optimist, thinking how it will be yet another technology that will help us, free hands, or is it going? I think the ultimate question at some moment there will be many different design AIs where City Hall or developers will surpass the architects or urban designers and start hiring AIs. Are we heading for that kind of future?
Exactly. That's the question that we also want you again to go through, Menti, and as we are discussing, you also think along with us. That's the if we can go to the second question. That's how will the autonomy of urban AI work in city design and city management? We've came up with these ideas, but of course it might be more than that. For which I would like also to invite Carissa, because I know that you already think we might have a fourth and fifth option. We came up with AI will soon become the dominant decision maker. And maybe because I don't see any responses, you have to close the window that you had and again insert the code, but the same code. I'm going to repeat it, 8680095. That's on the screen and also for people online, 8680095. But we came up with the answer that it's they can coexist, humans and urban AI can coexist and will work together. But there is a scenario that humans will always maintain their dominance, and there is an idea that AI will soon become the dominant decision maker in urban planning. While Carissa might say that we might have also a fourth and fifth option or scenario.
Well, again, I'll go back to, it's still very much the same discussion about planning support and what supports our planning processes. And we generally talk about very strategic planning tasks and very routine planning tasks. So your routine planning tasks are like planning of trash pickup in the city, right? These things you can kind of predict. After New Year's, you'll probably need to bring in more people, more services to clean up than on an average day, on a Thursday, busier than a Tuesday for cleaning, these sorts of things. But when we talk about our strategic planning tasks, this is where visioning, and this becomes, I think, a very human process, where maybe AI can have a role. But I give you an example of some of my concerns about generative AI in this context. So strategic tasks, envisioning the future of our cities. How do we want to live in a risk-prone future the coming 50 years? I have my students last year in industrial design where I was teaching in envisioning the future. And we go through a long semester of really rigorously building up the diegetic consistency. If you've watched, anybody who's watched Star Wars, you almost believe that it really happened. It really was something that happened and it's not fiction because of the diegetic consistency. So we spent a whole semester really building up the believability of this long-term future scenario. And I was saddened to see some of the visualizations of students because they took their scenario, they put it as a prompt into Midjourney or DALL-E, and they got an image, a beautiful image of Rotterdam in the year 2036, but it looked like Singapore in the year 2300. So my concern is that we lose this very human process and the diegetic consistency, the believability that we need to really compel people to take action if we hand this over to generative AI tools.
Yep, true. So it might be like more of this strategic way of planning. So you're thinking we have to make a differentiation between just referring to city planning, but be careful that which way are we going forward. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think I see. I mean, the responses from the from the audience. So I see that 50% says, well, there will be a collaboration between the human and the AI. 17% says, well, it can be the dominant decision maker in planning, and then I think that 1/3 of us says humans will remain, and I think as the dominant decision maker. I mean, I think. Well, if you look at the, let's say, the traditional decision-making processes where, let's say, the consultants consult and do their technical work and then bring it to the politics, and then, you know, is the way we decide in, let's say, representative democracy. Where the AI fits, or where the AI will come in, is a moment that humans will make, right? Like, hey, how far are we going to take, or are we going to let it happen, yes or no? So I think it's, I suppose until certain moment it will be in the hands of humans. But then the question is, like, will there be cities who will actually decide otherwise? Maybe it will not go in every city in the same way, and and I think that's one thing I can imagine there, that there will be cities that will be willing to, like in the what we have seen in the smart cities movement, right? There were cities who were fully going for it and experimenting with it, and then making all these big. I think in Brazilian cities we have seen such smart city laboratoriums, etc. And some cities were much more critical, and they couldn't pay for it, or for other reasons they didn't go into it. So. I think it's difficult to define, like, hey, like there will be one future for all the cities we have, but I can imagine maybe that there will be Chinese cities, there will be, that we will see where maybe urban AI will take further, or there will be, surely there will be experimentations of it, I think. And I give it a chance, like if we look at the smart cities, we have seen, I think, more sectoral, single sector projects, like energy projects, transport planning projects that succeeded. And then when it became more integral and more complex, like the example in can we look at the image of the Toronto, the Sidewalk Labs, Khan. So there we have seen it fail. So I think that there were protests from the citizens, and they did not know, they were worried about the transparency of data, and they killed the project. I mean, I think also the Corona crisis came probably on top of it. So then we have seen the end of that, like, let's say, how far a smart initiative could go. So maybe you want.
Yeah, like maybe like in here. What I see is AI is like another fully, let's say, autonomous thing. But I think it could be, should I call it? But it could be somehow like a collaborative partner for us. And in that sense, maybe not just replace, but to complement not what we are doing in the context of urban planning and design. And urban AI can take place as somehow to aid in these processes, to find some solutions for the complex problems. Then we can go through as a humans, as I am I think in the first group. In the first, because of course we will use AI, we need to use, but not as a main character, but as our partner, collaborator partner.
Yeah, true. I want to know if Mikala wants to add something. While we will see her on the screen, I wanted to say that what you were bringing was already, I don't want to make a different direction, but I guess that also has to do something with this whole gap that AI is, I wouldn't say that's AI causing, but like this gap between digitized and non-digitized communities, as you were saying, like some cities cannot afford to have going toward this digitalization. But I guess you wanted to say something to what Mert was saying. Keep it short.
No, I was joking. I said that because I think we were looking at our profile, so we were like a critical academic, and then technology optimist, and then and a creative who is already using, and then
true.
From the city gaming side we are using it, but we also want to see what does it mean for the discipline. So I was joking at Mert. Hey, I expected more.
I have more for next question.
Yeah, but I think maybe I can, if we have time for this round, I have one more thing to add, maybe.
Yeah, sure, but maybe we can first hear what Mikala wants to add, because as you said, she's also already using it rather than thinking about it, but you've been also using this tool. And in the creative sector, if you want to add something from your own perspective on autonomy of urban AI, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think it's a very bad idea. So I think like in my work in this field, it's just becoming increasingly clear, and this was what was what I was getting at before. We need to base our usage of AI systems or development of AI systems very firmly in an ethics of care. If we do not do this, we have scenarios that I really do not wish for us, that I do not wish for us as humans, that I do not wish for us as democracies. It could even be a question if we can continue to live in democracies if we have completely automated AI systems. The processes then that determine our urban development can become so intransparent that I think we can no longer talk about democratic developments. So I think that the issue of participatory governance needs to be built in the way that we engage with AI development in urban planning and in many kinds of other plannings. So we can see AI can be extremely efficient for processes that are in their essence automated. But when we go into something that shape our lives, that is so defined by our values, by the lives we wish to lead, by the kinds of interactions that we wish to have with one another, with our environment, we need to have participation of messy, entangled humans, and there are many relationships to make this work in a good way. So I would always opt for including this human messiness in these processes.
Yes, I agree, but I think I will try one more time. Is maybe also in the audience. Is there anyone who read the book from Yuval Noah Harari, and I think 21 Lessons for the 21st Century? Okay. I think there's a chapter about also the role of urban AI, and I think shortly I will mention what he claims there is that I think we humans we think that we are irreplaceable, like the whole idea of the free will is not as free as we think, and it doesn't exist as we think it is. And he says that if we agree that we humans are, let's say, like we can hack ourselves by pattern recognition of biochemical processes, how we decide, how we make choices, how we make as an individual. If that is replaceable by AI, if AI can understand sometimes better than how we ourselves understand, the whole assumption that hey, we as humans we have the values, and then I think that if you read the text, I think you start questioning like how far this can go, because also with the I think with the whole idea of it is learning much faster than all of us together, and the fixes around thick data, etc.
Just then one more provocative example then from Harari also. Do I have time?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Keep it short.
I think there is recently there is an experiment with ChatGPT 4.0, and to just go over this captcha. I'm human captcha. I am not a robot, and we are just like people giving this problem to the ChatGPT 4.0, and what ChatGPT 4.0 does. Hire a human consultancy agency to solve this problem for itself. I mean, hire people to click this, I am human or I am not a robot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that could go beyond that. And of course, like if it in some point understand our way of thinking or our way of, let's say, emotional intelligence, of course it could go beyond. But it is, let's say, far dystopic future. And I
guess Carissa wants to add something.
Yes, very shortly. For me, bringing this discussion of autonomy back to the topic, back to planning, my concern is who is the planner in this context when AI is involved. Right now, it is data scientists in Silicon Valley, or not even, because many have left, but largely American-centric that are. But we need, if we are going to hack the human being, then we need to also do this with informed knowledge from different disciplines with society.
Yeah, I mean, I think hacking the human beings probably are relatively easier than hacking the city. By the way, I think city is much more of a complex system than an individual. Also, his examples are, I think he is limiting his examples to music, like music algorithms, how you can actually use music to treat yourself, not city planning. I mean, I think it's a completely different level.
But this is a perfect transdisciplinary exercise that this should not be left to data scientists to determine these algorithms if they're going to be planning our cities.
Yeah, I guess we've already been struggling so hard with who is the planner, and then AI also entered the game. It's even more messy.
Yeah, but even without urban AI, I mean, who is now deciding, right?
Exactly, true. Who is making the decision? I would like to move to the next question. Mentimeter, please again grab your phones, and we'll go again with the same code 80095. For the people watching us online, I'm going to repeat again, 80095. And here it goes, the third question, that urban AI always generates optimum scenarios for direct application, maybe based on what Noel Harari was suggesting in his book. But what do you think? Do you think for sure it does, or you think that is possible? It depends on the case. Or you think that I don't think so, or you just disagree with this statement? We can wait for a bit more responses.
We put always in here, like we were talking about the manipulation level of the question that you ask, like that we like the level of manipulation, but when we put always in here, of course we will have only one or two answers in that sense.
True. Okay, I guess yeah, I don't think so is on top. While we were trying so hard to sell urban AI since the beginning. Joking. But do you want to say something, Mikala?
Yeah, that's of course a very biased question. So,
it was on purpose.
Will it always generate? No, but how could we? Yeah, how could we go deeper than that? Again, I would say if we, there are different conceptions of this. I think in the, I mean, Harari is great as a kind of a mass, like a communicator of science to large, or audiences. I enjoy reading him very much. Also, I enjoy the questions that he raises and the way that he raises them. I would think again there is like a kind of a maybe general understanding of AI as something that is in itself, like it has in itself a kind of a superhuman level of insight, and there is still not a very strong global consciousness about the biases. I mean, you mentioned it also. It's very American centric. It's quite sexist also. It has racist biases. It has class biases. If we go in and look at like what are the majority, where do the majority of the data come from that the ChatGPT, for instance, access to develop an adequate answer to our questions, we have such heavy biases. So I think again, we need to guide the data sets or guide our AI towards the data sets that we find ethically responsible when we go in and pose our questions. These generalized questions will really produce answers with biases that we are not even aware of. So we need to take this into account when we answer our questions. And with we, I mean the big we, everyone who is interested in using AI for processes of work, processes of thinking, discussing, etc.
Yeah, and speaking of American-centered scenarios, I guess it leads us to the second manipulative question that we have here to continue our conversation. With, of course, again, the same code. I will repeat it by the end of conversation. I know that you'll be pissed off, but 8680095. That imagine we are coming with this urban AI model that wants to predict the heat island. And we want to use it, of course, it goes in the same line with the previous question. How can it be applied? And it needs to be localized to each context.
Yeah.
Simple, easy peasy.
Yeah. Oh,
we have
oh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I wish.
Was that you?
Yeah, and it's because they're developed for cities worldwide, they can be applied globally. And it's growing, interestingly enough, but yeah, let's discuss it more in details. If you wish to add, please.
Yeah, well, I think that it's pretty clear that nobody on this panel is completely pro AI or pro human. But there are many different. Maybe people can see the role of AI in planning very differently, right? How do we engage with it? For what purposes? And the same thing applies here. That some things, for example, in this case, for example. Scientific climate data about meeting certain environmental microclimate conditions of cities is generalizable, but a hot and humid heat wave in Singapore will be very different than a heat wave in Oklahoma, where I'm from. So I think that these, and it's also, of course, experienced very differently. By different humans with different circumstances. So I think there's always this hybridity also in the use.
Yeah, I think that what we have also in the research, what we have seen is that with the Smart Cities movement in Internet of Things and all the sensors, they were all city-based. They were looking at a single city. And after all the, like they say, digital data, digitalization happened, and now algorithms are written or urban AI is coming, they are using that on top of that, but they are acting like more global companies or global algorithms that will be maybe valid, or they are acting as if that can be valid for Mecca and Helsinki at the same time, heat island effect, etc. So I think that's one tendency we see, but on the other hand, I think again, we have also a EcoCity game, and we are also testing, of course, with urban AI, especially with large language models. Let them play the game for us, and I think if you don't give them the context, they give very generic answers. And once you give the context to ChatGPT, for example, if you say, "Hey, play the game from the perspective of a woman of color in London and who is studying and who is artist," and like give the context. It also plays the EcoCity game from the perspective of a woman of color who lives in London with limited budget versus a white male having his own company, etc., etc. So you can also see the urban AI itself, with the help of big data, I guess, also has the capacity to contextualize. I think which is different than, again, big data approach, the technical approach of the smart cities we have seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like I would like to just maybe discuss a bit this localized, because while I'm working with the, let's say, like predictive models or clustering models, when I see like localized, what I immediately think is just only using the local data itself, because urban AI has potential to provide a foundation for global models, which could be calibrated for different contexts by feeding these systems or models or algorithms into local data. At the end, what we could have a copy of global model that could be higher accuracy for the local context. But in here, one of the challenges is that maybe urban AI could also help is that some of the local areas doesn't have its own data. For example, last year I was at Hamburg, City Science Lab, and there was a sister lab of City Science Lab, which is called Unitag Hamburg. And what they have been doing is using an AI model, which is called BEAM, in the Global South. By using deep learning models, they are mapping out the informal settlements that we don't have even data for that one. And in that sense, AI could be very helpful to generate
Contextualizing it.
Yeah. And also to create its own data to better formulate, analyze, or create some decisions, or like evenly or equally distribute the urban facilities and so on. I think it has a lot of potentials. Yes, the answer is we can use the model for Helsinki in Mecca by replacing only the data. From a technical perspective, it is. But if we put like thick understanding and so on, of course, it will create a difference. But from a technical perspective, the quick answer is yes. We can use clustering algorithm in Helsinki and also in Mecca.
So I guess what Mikola was suggesting about like guiding, but I would use the term instead training. So what you're suggesting is that use contextualization as a core value for ourselves and then try to train AI, then we will end up in a position probably with the second scenario that we are coexisting with urban AI. Would you agree with that statement?
I will.
Yeah, I think that might be a job for future architect. I mean, for the architect that will seek jobs.
True.
Well, if we're taking a global perspective, I'm by no means a neo-colonialism scholar, but I do work in the realm of capacity development. And there I think we need to be very careful to recognize that for decades now, actually hundreds of years, but when we talk about technology, for decades, we've been kind of assuming that our technologies have solutions that are acceptable and even usable in other contexts. And so my concern here, and they're just not. I had a real eye-opener recently teaching serious gaming to students, some of them from countries where playing board games is not done. So that was my own assumption about something in my world as simple as a board game, that everybody understands it. So I think that there are all kinds of injustices. You know, when we talk about climate change, will the use of AI put already advantaged parts of the world even more at advantage, and less advantaged parts much more in a situation of risk and vulnerability?
Yeah, that's totally true. I think it's the first time also in the debate, you were like, oh, that will be actually a new tool for colonization, most powerful one. But that will be the impact, right? That's I think beyond in the second debate we will be talking about the position of companies, etc. But I think without going into that, just looking into the globalness and the localness of the let's say the technologies, AI technologies, you can already say the differences between different locations in the world. It will only the gap will only increase in that sense. Maybe
I would like to jump in. I would like to jump in and maybe move to the third part, or like the fifth question. I promise this is going to be the last part of the questions with the question after this. It's more sharing what you think. That how do you feel about the increasing prominence of urban AI agents, such as drones, safety robots, autonomous vehicles? It's just sharing what you think, or how do you feel about it. For people watching us online, if you cannot see the code, once again, it's 86800095. And the answers are, I feel safe, or my privacy is in danger. Oh, somebody came with I feel safe. Interesting. I don't mind. Let's go for hybridity. It might be tricky. Do you want to add something, Ekim?
Yeah, I think that was also the increasing hybrid situation that comes with AI. In like again, if you look at back the smart cities movement was one thing, not difficult. I think it's easy to notice because in the smart cities movement we have seen, of course, I think a lot of the sensors, etc. Let's say the Internet of Things, they were there, but they were almost invisible in public space, and I think what we can expect now to see is that the agents of urban AI appearing more in physical space, in the city spaces. So I think the first reactions we see, for example, in San Francisco, where citizens create coning protests, which is probably, I think maybe we can show that image, Mert Khan now. So it's a way of reacting to autonomous vehicles, and once they see this like in their camera, this cone, they stop like and this is what citizens use to stop AVs entering the residential neighborhoods in San Francisco. And
AVs goes for autonomous vehicles.
And I think that, well, we will see. I think that's also the lack of negotiation probably, or the whole decision-making processes. All of a sudden, if you see one of these in your neighborhood, you react, of course. I think that's the second debate. But I think for now, to realize that the hybridity between the offline world and the digital world, it will become much faster and much more, let's say, the interaction between these two worlds will increase, and also given the fact that I think the digital city twins as a sector, I think this is also how World Urban Forum frames it, as a I think $40 billion sector that a lot of cities are creating their digital twins, and these
Can you explain
agents.
a bit more what is whole
That's
idea
a
of
3D the simulation of your city with all the data, with the live data being updated in the online world. And I think Singapore is leading in that. There are a few other cities who have created their digital city twins. And I think these agents being on the physical space and standing back to the digital world again, I think that traffic will be probably much faster and much more on a different level than we have seen in the smart cities.
I guess Mikola might also have an example of using this visible, as Ekim was referring to, visible urban AI agents, because if I remember correctly, that was a project that you've been part of a few years ago to address gentrification in one of the areas in Berlin. And you came up with the idea of using, maybe I'll instead of me explaining, you can explain about it. And we have a video, if we can have the video. Yeah, it's being displayed.
Yeah.
So, feel free to explain a bit more about it.
Well, this project looks more into social equity in an urban context. It is actually not AI-based, but when we had a conversation about it, we did come up with some ideas for how AI could be applied here. So this project is developed in 2018-19. And at that time, there was really a huge momentum for the housing rights movement in Berlin. So we had really hundreds and thousands of people on the street protesting against gentrification, protesting against people losing their homes and their workplaces, so that a very small group of citizens can make huge profits. I mean, you can really ask in a democracy, how can it be that such a tiny group of, like, the interest of such a tiny group of citizens is consistently trumping the interest of the vast majority to have the basic rights of housing covered. So COVID was really crushed down on the social movement. So there was a lot of activist burnout. We have also in Berlin, actually, which I think it's quite a beautiful example of participatory democracy in a very direct sense. There is a referendum calling out for a change of the housing policies, so that the big housing companies that have partly been acting downright criminal to optimize their profits, so that their portfolios of housing will be collectivized. And this connects me a little bit back to what I was trying to get at the very beginning for AI to have an amazing, wonderful, life-saving effect on our society, which I think it can. I think it's a potential that is there. But for this to happen, the technology needs to be collectivized. It cannot be led by the interest of a few big tech companies. If this is allowed to go unchecked, we will really have a horror scenario. So applied now to the context of gentrification in Berlin, what we imagined was a radically new policy for housing in the city, where it is really based on need and not on capital. So I would again also see connections to how we can address, for instance, the fact that we are now in the global north, talking about how can we optimize our urban environments here, while our overuse of collective earth resources have created catastrophic catastrophic circumstances for people in the global south. We need to put our use of AI in the service of these areas first. These are the areas that suffer by far the most from climate change. So we need to also build in climate justice in how we work with our AI systems. Here in the context of Berlin, what we talked about, and this was a very concrete example, was we had a squatted house, Liebig 34. It was like the only kind of, independent, subcultural, Flinter safe space. And the city, or the people who were living there were trying to buy the house. They could not raise enough money. The city didn't step in. The people were evicted, which I think is actually a scandal. The house was bought by Padovic, who is a criminal real estate speculant. He took the house, did not renovate it, and put in refugees, but charged the city triple the rates that he was actually allowed to charge the city based on how much space was available in the house. So we could have the situation where we, for instance, have an urban AI that has measured how much space available for these tenants, how much can the real estate speculant charge of public money, and these kinds of frauds would be very easily discoverable. At the moment, it is still quite intransparent. So that would be one. So this transparency, I would say, would be could be one easy way that AI could be helpful.
Yeah. So letting AI solve the corruption, or basically by creating more effective administrative systems.
Well, that goes again back to the algorithms, but what I really like and what I find really inspiring from Michaela's imagery here in projects is what I am quite positive about in AI, and that is how it can empower us and expand our toolkit to interface with society. As you can see in these examples, I've been really inspired by my industrial design students working with embedded AI for future citizenship, and seeing really inspiring views of how we could get not just people who are interested in being engaged in the planning of their cities because they have maybe housing issues, but also people who are uninterested, making it fun for them, giving visualizations that are inspiring. These kinds of interfacing capabilities, I think, are quite exciting, but still with a bit of a word of caution that we always need to be the humans having the role of the sense-making in these activities, not just in how we interpret what the AI experience is giving us for participation, but also how we set up those experiences. So again, a word of caution, but I do find this actually quite an exciting area for AI in cities.
But I might have a question. What if we realize that urban AI is capable of addressing the whole struggle of conflicting interests that we have been always thinking of, and it's been making a lot of urban planning processes way much more difficult than it used to, which leads us to the last question that please, for the very last time, go to menti.com and insert the code 8680095 and let us know, what do you think about if urban AI is being used in, as an example, designing public spaces, like crowded public spaces, and how it will interact with conflicting interests that we're facing. I'm not saying it does, but I'm just saying, what if? Does it gonna resolve? Is it gonna resolve the existing conflicts? Is it gonna create new conflicts of interest, or it just intensifies what we already have rather than making it simpler or better?
I don't want to manipulate the answers, but but I mean, I think when researching the applications of AI in terms of, for example, housing shortages, there's the example of City of Helsinki that uses AI chatbots to serve potential tenants to find social housing. For suitable housing, for example. Mm-hmm. But there are also urban AI that, let's say, from the perspective of the landowner or like the property owners, looks at the tenant profile and then screens the unsuitable tenants from the list. So I think it's, again, like what you are saying, like the technology is there as always, and it's up to humans how to use it or where you use it, for which purpose to use it, and it can do all. And it will, I think, it will depend on, how we will choose to use it.
You wanted to say something more, or at this point?
Like, from my perspective, digital twins deserves to be talked more. Maybe if you would, like, if you can go that direction a bit, I would also like be happy, because like digital twins has also a lot of potential to design or like parks or streets and so on, because it has a like a I noted here is like a powerful tool, but what you say is a sector for it's quite important for predictive urban management, because it could even create a model to predict traffic jams or detect infrastructure problems, or even like demonstrate the hotspots for urban heat island. But what is needed in here is always data. We need to like it is data dependency, and we always fed this system into data. But here is my critical hat is coming. But if we provide somehow in a let's say intentionally or unintentionally provide these sources with the inaccurate, with the incomplete, or with even the biased data, that could create a lot of conflicts that we haven't seen before. Because what we have at the end conclude in a let's say wrong way of understanding problems, which conclude wrong way of creating policies and so on. What could be in here is good, maybe like this transparency issue. I don't want to steal time for the next debate, but in here, transparency or the creating a multi-stakeholder environment could be very practical and beneficial, because data is power. If we assign this power to a certain agents in this society, that could go in a wrong direction. But if we...
Even in the case that you have the perfect data and you have the perfect assumptions, as soon as I think people don't follow what where the decisions come from, it can increase the conflicts that there are there. I see.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Do you want to add something? I wanted to open the floor for Q&A, because I assume we've been discussing. If you have any questions in the room, please raise your hand. My colleague will come to you and he will hold the mic. And if you're watching us online, please, again, go to menti.com and insert the code. Then you can leave your comment or your questions there. I'll receive it here, and then I'll direct it to any of the speakers or panelists. I guess there was a question here. Yeah, that's okay. I can.
I'll just hold the mic for you. Okay. I wrote it to myself, so excuse me if I'm reading from my phone. Just in terms of viewing, when people or decision makers viewing this as the future, but at the risk of completely losing their identity or humanity, do you see the question of cities deciding to be taken over by AI and those that don't, as similar to the choice between car-dominated city and those that aren't, especially considering like the car industry used to also today influence on regulation and what people are allowed to do in the public spaces. So do you see like, as we saw in history, how cities changed due to the car industry? If you see something like that, that one city will be like the Amsterdam of AI, like less AI and people want to live there, and like, I don't know, Brasilia or something like that.
Definitely. I think you also already see the positions of different cities take, right? Like, for example, there are cities who are already listing all the algorithms that they are using in their city services online, and you can see which algorithms are being used. I think Helsinki and Amsterdam being the first two cities to do that. And I think probably the other end, the cities that are using AI and probably citizens have no idea of they have idea, but they are, I think this whole like citizen point system that I think from China, that depending on your social behavior, you get degraded, etc. So I think definitely we will see different degradations of cities taking positions. And I think in that sense, even like some cities, for example, Amsterdam, refuses to use facial recognition in their applications, while for other cities maybe that's not a problem at all. So I think we will see probably the, let's say, the reflection of the let's say political colors of cities on how AI will be implemented worldwide. And I think we will see in that sense maybe cities will not become even more, let's say, generic or like homogeneous, but we will see maybe more differences.
I do think a lot will have to change. At the moment, I would very much agree with your concern that there's a, just like the automobile industry dominated first American cities, and then this model really started to be replicated in many parts of the globe. I have the same concern of this kind of single perspective way of influencing cities, and this goes back to the global versus local topic, of course. My concern also mainly comes from knowing that the way that cities, even Amsterdam, working with the city of Amsterdam, are still trying to grapple with the massive amount of data sets that they've collected. And not really knowing how to make sense of it, even just how to organize it, not just like much less get a citizen perspective on the sense making of all that data. So, and that's a local challenge. So now bring the global algorithm, generalizing challenge on top of that. That there's a risk that approach can really just take off and kind of
maybe I can take a little bit of the position for city gaming here. I think that sorry,
so interesting.
I think that's also the same critique. We had I think in the 90s something like a second world, and a lot of people actually compare. I mean, of course, the second world was not based on real data, and the digital city twins are based on real data, and it's kind of supposedly should help designers to get even more wise, etc. But I think back to your cool slide, the hyper comprehensivity, so much data, so much of everything, but then not knowing which direction you go. I think there is a role to play for city games or city game-like methods that actually come with a collectively agreed challenge. You know, we know what we are looking at, and then within, I think it can be digital city twins where you play the game or like outside of it, or that in relation to that, then knowing what your question is before you enter the whole sea or ocean of data, I think would really support.
But thank you so much for the great question, because it again bridged the conversation to the role of city games. I guess we might have time for one more question if someone wants to ask a question. If not, then I would like to open the conversation of wrap up conversation and trying to conclude what we've been discussing tonight and seeing what we are looking forward in the next episode. I guess you wanted to say something, Mert.
I have like just a small thing.
Yeah.
To understand this all discussion of the control of the AI from fun perspective, there is a episode from Netflix, like TV series in Netflix called Love, Deaths and Robots, and there is a episode in here when the yogurt took control. Please watch it, and the yogurt has conscience and took the control of Ohio. Then like everything has started. Just watch it. If just 6 or 7 minutes, and it is really have fun.
Coming back to the scholar perspective, I started as a planning support technology. I'll definitely watch this if I can get my husband off of Kamp van Koningsbrug. Maybe my final concluding statement would be as a scholar, I started working in research on planning support technologies, and then I moved totally the opposite towards tabletop serious games, much like the work of Play the City. And I've been ever since moving somewhere back towards the technology. And I think that I'd like to leave you with one word for today, which is what I take away, and that's hybridity. I think that the future is very hybrid, and not just in terms of robots, AI-embedded robots roaming our streets, but also our tools and our methods also to help us make sense of what is going on in the digital world.
Thank you so much. As you want your mic back? I'll give it back for a sec. Just we have a question from Menti, and I lost my iPad. That's what I'm communicating through my phone. I'll read the question, and Mikala and any of you who feel free to respond. It was an invitation. Somebody asked, with respect to who is the planner, what about having multiple AI models representing different groups? Wouldn't that be more fair or less biased, in parentheses, or at least more transparent?
Compared to the existing processes that we have?
Probably, yeah. Maybe I can repeat it shortly. Yeah. With respect to who is the planner, what about having multiple AI models representing different groups? So probably for all these marginalized groups that we are trying to include in urban planning processes, they're suggesting to have like AI models.
Mikala, I know that you've worked in this. Yeah. I'd like to throw that to you, if that's okay.
Yes. I would much rather have people from diverse communities come together in person to discuss what question or what assignment or what job do we give to our collectively owned AI, rather than having algorithms represent diverse communities. Let's bring the diverse communities to have the discussions in person. I think that also, why is gaming interesting in this context? Because gaming is also about understanding and creating and developing values. And I think that, again, the guiding maxim for development of AI, which is at such a crucial moment right now, because we can still control it. We can still, well, maybe not control, we can still shape it. We still have a lot of agency in shaping the development of AI systems now. Let's do this on an ethics based on care. Let's do this on an ethics based on pluralism. Let's do this on an ethics based on collectivity and solidarity. And let's really, my greatest concern would be, let's not leave it in the hands of a few big tech firms to shape this future now. So this means we need to come together as communities. We need to develop the right questions together. I think that's even more important at this point than having ready-made answers served to us by algorithms.
Yeah, I think that indeed. I mean, the city gaming can indeed, I think, play a role in like, hey, if there's urban AI and if the human values, how to negotiate this, how to collectively develop urban AI together, the values that we think are important for our cities, to put them in the urban AI. And it took for Play the City maybe more than 5 years once we had the methodology to understand how cities, for example, and different cities also have different decision-making mechanisms. How do you put such a method into that ongoing machine of decision-making? And I think what we have now is a situation where an autonomous technology that says, well, we can predict, we can analyze, we can prescribe for you, and cities actually feeling most of the time helpless, and that I think they are powerless in the sense that they don't really know which data is put into those models, what sort of rules do they, algorithms that are using, and I think they are trying to find a way to negotiate with big companies, and some of them are ignorant to even share how those algorithms work with cities. Mm-hmm. We are in a situation like that. And for me, I think for a city, like from the perspective of where I come from, we have the method, and we now learn how to put in the existing decision-making processes where that the tool becomes relevant. Now we are getting a complete different situation where like the whole power balance is totally distorted, and then high-tech companies are on top of the whole chain. And cities are themselves feeling hopeless, and then the position of citizen groups, the citizen participation. What is the position of that? I think that's the question we probably need to be asking. And I have seen, I think, Michiel de Lange's beautiful program for 14th of November. I think you guys are also asking, hey, can we reconceptualize urban AI as civic urban AI? Can something like this exist? And if that can exist, how it will then position itself within the existing decision-making processes, who decides to include that in which world? I think we have seen. I'm sorry, it's taking too long, but
no, it's all good.
So we had a period where the traditional decision-making processes were making choices while there's a whole parallel world of co-creation, like endless talking, making beautiful co-creation sessions which has no impact on the plans that were being decided, and we had that phase, and I think finally we see a phase where citizen cooperatives, own cooperatives, that citizens are like knowing to organize themselves, becoming as a serious partner to local governments, and then now we have this. And I think in that sense, we really, I think I can easily say, yes, I have a method and it will help humans and non-humans, more than human beings, all negotiate, and I have the method. But I think it's too easy to say that. I think that's more behind it. And the whole thing is much more complex.
True. Thank you so much. First of all, that was a planned promotion, the program. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to thank you all who joined us here tonight, and people who were watching us online, but of course, thank all the speakers that joined us. Of course, we will continue with Ekim for the next programs. Before going through the next programs, I would like to very quickly conclude what we've been discussing this evening. We started with definition of urban AI. It is something that's gonna help us to improve our urban living. But we are, of course, dealing with how we can overcome the challenges that we're already having in this data-hungry world, as Mert was explaining. And we touched upon participatory governing processes, and if urban AI can be a collaborative partner for us, or rather something that will take dominance in the near future or the other way around. And we talked about locality versus globality, and where does it stand, and to what extent we need contextualization to work with urban AI. And I like also to quote the very nicely said sentence or statement by Mikala that urban AI can have life-saving effect on our society if it's collectivized. So if you were interested in this conversation, make sure that you're not missing the second and third episode. As you can see behind me on the screen, the second episode of this conversation is going to happen on 14th of October on urban AI and democracy. And obviously, we're going to talk more about democratic practices and how urban AI can be helpful or not. And the last part of this series will be on 25th of November on urban AI and design. And we will take a deeper dive on urban AI as a tool for inclusive design in cities. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you would like to become a friend of Podcast Zwijger, you can scan this QR code and donate as you wish. And yeah, I wish you all a lovely evening. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.